So welcome to our fifth business bootcamp. So tonight I want to share with you how to use social media to your advantage. So this is really where I'm going to help hopefully to demystify some of the technology and some of the techniques that I've really had to learn to use to be able to make an online business that I can take with me from posting to posting. And so I want to reassure you that I am probably one of the least naturally techie people that I know, hands down. So this definitely has not been something that I become good at because I have any kind of technology inclinations that has served me well through this. I've essentially just really learned bit by bit how to use this stuff, and I just really want to reassure people that it's actually so much easier than we often kind of think that it is. So what I'm going to be sharing with you tonight is really what to post, when to post it, and how to post things that will make people actually want to invest in your services or buy the things that you're trying to sell. Because that's often really that most difficult part that we really have trouble with. It's really not just how do we start to kind of build maybe an online presence that supports our business, but how do we actually get to use that in a way that converts people from just looking at our stuff to really building a relationship with us and starting to buy things? So this little highlight is just my Instagram at this moment. So Instagram and Facebook are the main platforms that I use. So those are going to be the ones that I'm probably talking the most about. But I'm happy for people to interrupt me anytime that you have questions and want to jump in. And I'm curious if people can just maybe type in the chat what kind of experience you have so far of using social media for business. So is this brand new for you? Is this something that you've already kind of started getting, your hands into? Or is this something that you already do quite a bit of and you just want to learn to get even better at it, or maybe bring up your income level by using social media? So I'm just curious to hear where people are at with that. And Amanda, I'm just going to get you to change slides while people enter that for us here. Perfect. So I just want to share with you a little bit about my story. So I have built a local private practice. I'm a psychotherapist by trade. So I had really that traditional local business that I really just managed to build up essentially through a few strategies, but mostly word of mouth just in my local area. Which was great. And I had actually a side job at the time that I was doing that. So I was able to really build up my business in a way that I didn't have a lot of pressure on my shoulders to really make it successful. But something kind of happened in my life that was a really traumatic event that changed the way that I started to work and really moved me into the online world. So if you've been following me on social media, you know I probably shared my story that I had a little girl, a baby daughter, and she passed away not long after she was born. And after I took a good amount of time off work, I really came to realize that there wasn't a whole lot of support that I was coming across for women who have experienced this kind of thing. And I just felt really driven to be creating resources that people could access no matter where they were, no matter what time of day it was. I really wanted to be able to get things that I felt would be supportive and useful for people into people's hands 24/7 as long as they had Wi-Fi, right? Whether it was 3 a.m. in the morning, I wanted them to be able to access the support. And after I've been doing that for a while, I really came to realize that it is a significant investment in time to be building up an online platform and an online resource. And I realized that I was at that point of decision of saying, either I'm going to really say this is truly just kind of a little hobby that I have on the side, like a volunteer project, or I'm going to say, and meaning that I would scale down on the amount of time and money I was investing in it, or I was going to say I really need to learn how to make this sustainable. And so it was at that point in time that I really started taking my own education seriously, learning about things like marketing, learning about things like social media, learning about building a business and getting my message out there where people could see it and it could reach people. So I've been doing that for about 5 years now, I guess. And now my programs and the work that I've created support people in 24 different countries. So I'm actually really proud of that accomplishment. And I have clients really now across the globe where I support people with things like anxiety and relationships, business goals at times, and just personal development kind of stuff. So I have become really extremely grateful that I had that level of foundation that I had been building up in my online business before my partner had been posted the last time, because that was the first time that I really had to pick up and leave behind really everything and leave it so far away from me. And so we had the experience of getting to move to Italy, which was fantastic and amazing in many ways, and also not fantastic and not amazing in a lot of other ways. And part of that for me was almost realizing very much how much that we have to walk away from as spouses on a regular basis. And I was really feeling that challenge of really hanging on to, this stuff that meant a lot to me and that I had built up in an atmosphere where it often felt like the expectation in a way is that we're kind of just totally available to our spouses and our spouse's career. And it just got me really thinking about how much we're often kind of nudged to give up and to be available for our partners. And I feel like while there's part of that that is great and lovely and can work really well, I also think that at the end of the day, I am so grateful for my business that has allowed me to connect to the parts of my passions and my creativity and my skill set. And I really am so convinced that absolutely everybody truly has gifts and talents and abilities and interests and things that really light them up. And I feel like there's a cost that we encounter on some level when we're kind of always putting that part of ourselves on the shelf to really be of service to the people around us. And so I really become extremely passionate about helping other spouses to really look at what are those things that light them up? What are those parts of themselves where kind of, when you're making it or when you're doing it, time kind of stands still a little bit, where you feel like you're really in your element. Because for me, my business has really become an outlet of how I play with really those parts of my identity and how I really hold space for that in my life. I also really like the benefit of having my own source of income, especially for those days when my partner might be making me crazy. And I can absolutely say to myself, okay, I am here because I choose to be, or, the place I'm living is making me crazy. I'm absolutely here because I choose to be and not just because I don't have my own income to be able to take care of myself or have other options. So for me, I just have become so much a believer of how much goodness creating our own business can really bring into our lives, and how much more we're able to really trickle that down and have a positive impact on the other people around us. So next slide, please. So what I'm going to be walking you through tonight is really what I've come to believe are some really easy and effective ways that we can use social media to start to be known, to start to build relationships, and to essentially start to make sales. So we're kind of in this interesting point in time where, 20 years ago perhaps, we really didn't have that much option but to kind of really be rebuilding everything with every posting. And the internet has really changed that. There's so many kinds of businesses now that you would not even think of traditionally being a mobile or online business. Mine is an example of that, for instance, as a psychotherapist. But there's so many businesses that really can function and flourish with just Wi-Fi connection. So the amount of freedom that offers us is absolutely incredible. Now, I know that for some people that are not necessarily that into social media, it can feel a little bit daunting to begin. And to be totally honest, that's also the way that I felt. I was not somebody that hung out on social media very much before I started my business. I did not have an Instagram account. Even to this day, I don't have a personal Instagram account. I have a business Instagram account. And the only kind of time that I had used Facebook was really just to be able to kind of stay in touch with relatives and friends, in different parts of the country. So this was totally not my realm of comfort or experience. So, and I share that with you because I think what's important to keep in mind here is that it is a really gentle and easy point of entry. So the main reasons why I think it becomes useful to use social media is, first and foremost, this is probably where your customers are. This is where your people are. We know that there's statistics that they keep up to date all the time. So right now they're saying that 75% of people in the US are on Facebook, and most of those people check Facebook every single day. So this is really, when we look at it, the easiest place, I believe, to start having contact with your potential clients or customers and to be starting to build your relationship with them. Back in the day, right, we would have had to put out an ad in a newspaper. We would have had to maybe post flyers around our neighborhood, and we would have had to maybe try to really hustle at networking events and passing out business cards. I feel like social media has really replaced all of that stuff. And the nice thing about it is that it is free. It's free to use. So the reality is that anybody with a Wi-Fi connection can now actually start to build a business, and you don't need a huge nest egg or a huge advertising budget to do that. You can just begin using a social media account. So I'm going to show you some ways to do that. Next slide. So the other reason that I think is important to use social media is, one, is it's actually expected now. It becomes a piece of credibility to be able to share that information with people. I know, and I don't know for you when you think about it for your own self, when you're thinking about, possibly connecting to a new business or possibly researching a service that you might want to use, oftentimes we're going and checking out their Facebook account. And so I like to think of a Facebook account as really like the sister or partner of your website, where your website, if you have one, might be really like that standalone kind of snapshot of that snapshot representation of what you do. But your social media really functions as proof of what you do. Your social media is where people can basically scroll through and see that you're legit, see that you take your business seriously. This is not just an ad that you've put up on Kijiji, let's say. This is something that you are investing time into your craft. And so your Instagram or your Facebook tends to function as really your portfolio for people. So, for example, if you're a fitness coach, people are going to go and look at your Instagram account to get a sense of, do I like this person? Do I like their style? Is this somebody that I would want to work with? This is really where we start to research the services that we want to use. Next slide. And so in many ways, I believe that our social media, and I just look at how I've used this in my own life, I no longer get business cards printed anymore, because what I noticed is that when I am at an event or when I am meeting somebody and my services come up or the work I'm doing comes up, whether it's consulting or whatever that is, I'm not passing them a business card anymore. Literally what's happening is we're both getting to open our phones and we're adding each other to social media. So this, in the same way that you do that with somebody that you're meeting just socially, it becomes the exact same interaction, but changing your business information. And so unless you're really going door to door in some way, you don't need to be doing things like business cards anymore. Our social media really starts to function as our point of contact, depending on where and how we're connecting with people. The other reason that I think is really important to keep in mind, and this is the major benefit of social media. So if nothing else, I want you to take home this one point right here. We invest our money and buy from people that we know, like, and trust. Those are the three ingredients that make us open our wallet or enter our credit card number. We know them, we like them, and we trust that we're going to get what we think we're going to get for this. So social media becomes a really powerful way of doing that. Just by sitting at home, doing a few posts, you can start to build a circle with your potential customers. And I'm going to walk you through how we really do that. And the main thing that we're doing that I want you to really keep in mind, if you're not doing this already, it's not just that we want to gain numbers of followers, although that's a great metric to keep track of, obviously. It's that we're wanting to build a relationship with those people. We want to be offering them an experience of what it's like to work with us or what they can expect with us. Next slide. So this is the meat and potatoes of it. So the most important reason of why we're using social media is because you're wanting to build a sales funnel. So for those that aren't really familiar with that term, what we're talking about with a sales funnel is where we go from introducing people to our business, and we get that whole kind of circle of people that are maybe having different points of contact with us, are starting to become interested in what we're doing. So they're starting to pause when they see our page. They're starting to read the stuff that we're posting. They're starting to say, hey, there's something here that maybe pertains to me. And then they're moving from that place into this place of considering. They're considering that you might have something that they need, that they might want to work with you or buy that thing that you're making or selling. And then the last part of this funnel is really where we're wanting to convert people from just essentially being one of our followers or audience members or content consumers to people who are wanting to pay and exchange and reciprocate the value that we're offering them or the product that we're offering them for cash. Next slide. So that's essentially the goal, right? That we're wanting to create this platform that out of this whole number of circle of people who are following us, that some of those people make that decision to say, I want that thing that she's offering. So one of the questions that people ask me a lot is really, what platform do I start with? What platform do I choose? So the main thing that I encourage people to think about is don't try to be everywhere, just consistently show up somewhere. So I often tell people the idea that pick just one or two and focus on learning how to do that really well. Focus at getting good at that. Because oftentimes what happens, and I've absolutely fallen into this trap before, is it's like, you know, we read one blog and it tells us that we should be on Twitter. We read one blog, it tells us that we should be on TikTok. We read one blog, it tells us that we should be on Instagram, right? And there's all these different pieces of advice kind of flowing around us. And we can get into this state of kind of panic where we then just start firing things off in all directions, which probably means that we're not really doing that with a lot of strategy. We're not really thinking intensely about what it is that we're putting out there. We're almost just trying to like play that game whack-a-mole where you're just trying to like pop down all of the heads as they're popping up and just to keep up with that pace of posting. So instead, pick one or two things. The things I would encourage you to think about are, where do you already enjoy spending time? What social media platforms are you already using? And I'll share an example. Technically, I have a Twitter account because really I had business advice one time and said start a Twitter account. I've never used it. I think I maybe posted like one thing 4 years ago because that's not really the medium that speaks to me. And it's not something I personally enjoy hanging out on Twitter. So the idea that I would then start investing my time and energy to build my business on Twitter really actually didn't make any sense when I stepped back at it and looked at it from that phenomenon. The reality is that we're all kind of busy people. So instead of trying to, do all the things, I think it's much more effective to narrow in and just get good at doing one thing. The nice bonus to consider is that if you're posting on Instagram, Instagram has a feature on it that you can automatically share it to Facebook directly. Next slide. So the other question that comes up a lot is, how often should I be posting? So quality is way more important than quantity. I see I have a typo there. Quality is way more important, or sorry, yes, quality is way more important than quantity. So instead of just trying to post, let's say 3 things a day, just for the sake of saying, okay, I did that post, which I think a lot of people can kind of get into, oh my goodness, I have to post today, okay, I have to post something. I think that's actually counterproductive. I think it's actually a much smarter strategy to be posting less often, but higher quality, well thought out stuff. So you don't want to create a news feed or a Instagram profile that basically is just full of mediocre crap, essentially. Much better that people land on your page and see that there's less posts, but they're posts that really hold their attention. They're posts that really offer them something of value. As a golden rule, I think the idea of daily posting is kind of the ideal, but I think sometimes that's just a little bit too out of reach. And so even if you're posting a couple times a week, but it's planned out, thought out, intentional posts. You're not just posting to be able to cross it off your to-do list. You can also Google online. There's a million things that come up for this. I just copied and pasted one here, where there's all kinds of ideas you can get for what to post and things like a weekly posting plan. So for instance, actually I can walk you through that a little bit later. So again, tons of stuff on the internet, and this is really how I built up a lot of my experience. Is sometimes when I talk to people about, building their business, they say, oh, okay, so now I have to go and take a course on how to learn how to do this, or how I have to learn how to start a website, or I have to learn how to, use this technology. You absolutely don't have to do any of those things. I took no website courses. I had no website skills. What I did was I watched a lot of YouTube and I listened to a lot of podcasts and I did a lot of research. Again, the internet has changed everything. You can get a full education just by Googling things. So what I'm kind of doing with you here is really synthesizing, really the 5 years of kind of intensive researching and the coaches that I've paid and invested to work in to share the knowledge that I can of what I found really works. So yeah, feel free to ask me questions as we go. And I just want to check in with people. If you could just maybe write in the chat what's standing out to you, if questions are coming up for you, and if this is feeling kind of where you're at. Again, I'm curious about what level of experience you have using this stuff already. So just let me know if this is on the right track for you. Next slide, Amanda. So here's kind of the million-dollar question, is how do I make sales on social media? One of the things that I've wrestled with and that I know a lot of people, especially women, really struggle with is it can feel kind of icky and uncomfortable to be asking people to pay you for something, right? Most of us are much more comfortable giving than we really are asking or receiving, especially when that comes to getting paid for something or charging a price for something. That's definitely something that I've had to navigate in my own way as I've been really moving from. In my private practice, people essentially reached out to me and they would pay me at the end of session. And I never felt uncomfortable receiving that money because I could always tell that people were really relieved, really glad that they invested in this, and happy to be working with me. They were happy to pay me that money. It was a complete reversal of that when I started trying to make an online presence for myself, where instead I had to tell people why they should invest in me. And that felt, and ask them oftentimes to pay for my products or my courses up front. And that felt like a very challenging reversal for me. So one of the ways that really helped me through that is a strategy. It comes from Gary Vaynerchuk, which is give, 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 ask. Give, 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 ask. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. I'm also going to show you some examples of what to post. So I really appreciate that question that came in about what exactly to post. I'm going to walk you through that in some detail here. So first off, I want you to write this down if you haven't already. Give, 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 ask. This is the strategy for how we're going to make sales on social media, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. Next slide. So here's what you're going to post. First off, you are going to focus on one person in your mind. One person in your mind. This, again, the million-dollar point to take home right here. Focus on one person in your mind. Think of somebody who has maybe bought something that you've made, maybe a client that you've already had and you've enjoyed working with. Yes. Yeah. Amanda, can you just catch that question for me too, because I just missed the last little end of it. So someone's saying definitely get that feeling of icky, right? And we have like that stereotype in our mind, right? You kind of picture those like high pressure sales tactics that we've all kind of experienced in different settings. I was thinking of a time that I was on a tour with my family, and we were going into one of the leather shops, and the sales guys were like literally wrapping coats on us and literally followed my parents and I out into the parking lot and right up to the tour bus as they're trying to pressure them into buying this thing. And I think we have that real fear that that's how we're going to come across to people if we're trying to sell to them. We definitely, I think we've all had such icky experiences with salespeople forcing us and pressuring us to do things that we're really worried about coming off on as being that person to somebody else, right? Which like, ugh, it's disgusting, right? I hate that. So instead, this is the way that you kind of get around that feeling. So you focus on one person in your mind and you make content that is genuinely useful to her. So I want you to literally write down, so let's say that you haven't sold anything yet, but maybe you make soap or you make knit hats or you do graphic design for somebody or you're a yoga instructor. Think about really that one client avatar, that one person that you love working with, and think about what would be useful to her. So I'm going to walk you through that. Next slide. But I want you to write down, who is that one client? Maybe that's a friend, maybe that is, a coworker that you've had, just maybe that's a past customer. Write down the name of one person that you know would really love this thing that you're making or offering. And here's what I want you to think about with that one person. So before I create a product or a course, or before I look at what I'm posting, I want to really take a look at what is it that she needs. So even if you're making something like crochet hats or scarves for somebody, you want to get a really good sense of that whole person of your customer in your mind, because this is going to change the whole energy of everything that you're writing on social media and every way that she's connecting with you. When I am in this place of almost kind of nervousness about selling, when I think back to, like 5 years ago when I was kind of first starting, and I'd get really hung up on, what's the right things to say, what's the right things to do, and almost trying to kind of copy like how other people were writing their sales emails and stuff as a template because it was uncomfortable. It would feel uncomfortable, right? And that stuff never really had quite as much impact as, let's say, the email that I just sent out this past week, where I literally just told the story of one client. Actually, I posted that on my Instagram. I basically just did a shorter version of the email. So my email is @with.love.april. So you can see that example of I'm really focusing on the needs of one person in my mind, and I'm telling a story that benefits her. And I'm using a story from an example of a client that I worked with, and I'm getting, my inbox is full right now. I've not been able to keep up with it, with women telling me that that email brought them to tears. It was exactly what they needed to hear, and it had a big impact. So this is really the power of really focusing on what your person needs, even if what you're offering them is just a hat or just some soap, right? Those are lovely things. I'm not minimizing that. I'm saying that the same rules apply. So what is she thinking about when she's getting ready in the morning? What is it that keeps her awake at night? And how can you help her solve her problems? So I want you to write these questions down, and I think Amanda's going to save the slides after too, but write these questions down, because when we're interacting with somebody on social media, we are building a relationship with that person. We can't just come on there and talk about our products and only talk about why people should buy them and only talk about the sale that we're having. We have to build a relationship with the people who are looking at our page. So this becomes a strategy of I give stuff that's useful to her, I give stuff that's useful to her, ideas, suggestions, tips. And once I do that, every once in a while I can throw in and I've got spots open for new clients, or and here's this product that I'm making. Next slide. So it's really about that balance, right? So when we look at, let's say someone is a fitness coach, the things that you want to think about posting on your social media is, what does she need? Not just in terms of working with you or the product that you're offering, but how can you actually be of service, and how can your social media account be something that adds value into her day, even if she never ends up buying your thing? This is the relationship that you want with people, right? The circle of thousands of people who love and benefit from what you're doing. And it's going to be a percentage of those people that decide to take it a step farther with you, of buying your thing or investing in your services. But it's this relationship that's going to keep people there and make them want to connect with you. So if you're a fitness coach, you might be offering things like healthy snack ideas, tips for hunger cravings. You might share a recipe. You might look at tips for how to get the most out of your workout, or reminders and encouragement, right? You might even just say something simple like, don't forget to drink your water today, or, you know, today's a good day for a rest day, or whatever that is, right? You also want to look at sharing inspiration. So this might be pics of your own workout. This might be stories about the success that you had, maybe where you were before you became a fitness coach, any struggles that you've had with really your health or body, and tell the story of how you were able to shape this. So notice that if I was on your social media feed right now, I would want to keep seeing what you post. I would want to keep being a follower of your page. Because if you're giving me this kind of stuff that's actually useful to someone who wants these things, I'm going to keep hanging out here. And if I keep hanging out at your page, I'm quite possibly going to end up wanting to buy that service when you offer it. So notice how this really comes into that whole person, right? When we think about what your client needs, let's say you're offering a coaching program, what you're offering here is so much more than that. But you're also showing her that you really know what you're doing, that you really understand her needs, and that you actually care about her, and you've got a lot of good stuff to offer. So if people see this and they say, oh, this is how much she's giving away for free, she's probably really amazing. I have a good sense that I know her, I like her, and I trust her, and I'm willing to buy from her. It's all about minimizing that risk for people. Next slide, please. So another example, let's say that you are a knitted craft maker. Same rules apply. What does this person need? What does her day look like? What's on her to-do list? What is it that's stressing her out? Because these are the things that are going to help you to connect with her. Nobody wants to be sold to all the time. Look at my new hat. Look at my new hat. Brand new hats in stock. I'm not going to follow that page, right? Even if you are my best friend, and we all have experienced this when you look at people who have maybe started selling something, we all have somebody that's, you know, maybe been a friend of ours or a colleague of ours, and we started off following them to support them, but then we were like, ooh, every time I see this, she's just asking me to buy something. It feels uncomfortable, right? It becomes an uncomfortable relationship. Remember, social media is all about social relationships. You want to show people that you care, and you want to show people that you are seeing them as a full human. The guy who is chasing us to the tourist bus trying to throw leather coats on us as we're literally walking away clearly doesn't care about us as a whole person. He clearly just sees us as a walking ATM machine. This is the way that you avoid coming off as that with the potential clients and customers that you're wanting to look at. So let's say that you're a knitted craft maker. You want to possibly look at creating an experience of your brand. What's the feeling that you want people to have as they're looking at your page? Maybe it's a cozy kind of experience, a comforting kind of experience. So these are the things you're going to keep in mind. So maybe you share things that are also for someone that wants, let's say, a cozy comforter or one of those trendy knit blankets right now that are out, right? For somebody that wants that, she's somebody that probably likes to curl up with a book or curl up and watch Netflix with a cup of tea or a glass of wine, right? So think about what she's into and what kind of woman she is. Then you're going to want to share some behind the scenes. Share stuff as you're working on it. This is something that I've not been great at in the past. It's funny how we can kind of just, forget the stuff that we're supposed to do in a way. So to help make sure that, so what I would realize I would be doing is I'd be sharing a lot of inspirational stuff, but I wouldn't necessarily be showing people, how much work I'm putting into things and the whole kind of creative process of like the programs that I'm building. So to help me stay connected to that, I've started doing a Work With Me Wednesday. So right now my Instagram stories are filled with little snippets of everything I've been working on today. So again, this also helps to create a sense of value, a sense of knowing you, and it gives people, this idea that it's not just that these these handmade things you're making come out of a box of 100 of them that you ordered from who knows where. It really is things that you've lovingly made, right? It adds value and a degree of specialness when people see you literally making things, right? So you can take photos, you could do little videos. So other things that you could do is like styling tips. Here's a great color to wear, or here's a great gift. If your sister-in-law is sporty and practical, she might love this, right? For somebody that is brunette with green eyes, these colors look amazing on that person. Again, keep in mind that when people decide to buy from you, they buy from you for the sole reason that you are offering them a solution to their problem. That is the only reason why people ever click buy. No matter what it is you're selling, the only reason people click buy is because you are offering them a solution to their problem. So the problem might be that she has a friend's birthday coming up. The problem might be that she's been wanting to get out and hike more, but it's been chilly, and this idea of buying your knitted hat is going to make her feel like she's going to get more motivated to go out and do this. It might be that she's been having a really hard week and she's wanting to feel a little more rested or comforted or to treat herself. In any moment that someone's buying from you, it's because it's solving a potential problem. Next slide, please. So another thing that I've heard someone discuss is that kind of resonate with me is thinking about the 9 to 12 things that you want people to see on their feed. So if you were to look at my page, you would see the examples of every once in a while I might share, here's a story about me, right? Here's a little information about, what I do as a therapist, or here's a little bit of information about why I care so much about this stuff, or here's a piece of my story. The other thing I might share is why it's so important to me to do the work that I do. Simon Sinek, you can write that name down if you like, he is phenomenal. He talks about the idea that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So if you're someone that's making hand knit things, what's kind of interesting is looking at the picture of your adorable knitted hat. What is more interesting is hearing about why you love to make these so much. Maybe your grandmother taught you how to do this, and this is a way that you continue to feel close to her as you carry on that family tradition, right? Notice how these little stories, they don't have to be super deep, they don't have to be super emotional, but these little pieces of information about you allow people to begin to know, like, and trust you. The other things you're going to see me talking about on my feed are a mix of, again, those personal little things. So for me, I'm going to include pictures of my adorable dog. That helps to kind of lighten up some of the topics that I talk about. It also keeps my feed extra cute from time to time. And I'm going to be sharing a lot of affirmations, positive thoughts, bits of encouragement, tips about relationships, tips about managing your mood and your personal growth and health. I'm also going to be doing things like Q&A, and I'm going to be talking about really my work as an entrepreneur from time to time, because that's just a part of my life and something I'm passionate about. So these are the things, right? So notice how all of this, it's not that I'm coming on here and saying, buy my thing, buy my thing, buy my thing. I'm giving people a full experience of who I am and what I'm about. Next slide. So let's say that you're a yoga instructor, right? We can kind of see some examples of how this might work for what you might be posting. Write out really just 9 to 12 things that you might want to be sharing with your people. And the neat kind of thing to keep in mind is your Instagram grid, for instance, when you first land on your page, is 9 squares is what you're going to see. So in any given 9 things, you want to have a little bit of a mix, right? So this mix might be a piece of, your family life, might be a piece of, you're looking at your office, or you're working at home, might be things like tips about self-care, maybe you're even sharing some of your favorite workout gear, healthy food, right? See how that kind of just starts to create a whole experience for the person and allows people to know you, like you, and trust you, and allows people to look at all the benefit that this potential profile is offering somebody, even if they don't end up buying. This feed benefits the person watching it. And if it benefits the person watching it, she's going to keep watching it, and she's probably going to share it with her friends. Next one. So here's some examples of how to ask for the sale without being sleazy, right? So let's say you're a fitness coach. I've got 3 spots open for women who want to get into shape this summer. If you want to feel hotter, healthier, and have more fun in your bikini this year, this is for you. So notice how we've just kind of highlighted, and this is really kind of specific to, like, let's say one type of client avatar, right? Maybe this is a younger person, younger than me anyway. So we've just really highlighted, what is it that she wants really? What is the problem that you're solving for her? The problem is that she probably feels less comfortable, she's maybe self-conscious, and she's looking to be able to feel more free, right? Next one. So here's another post. I am loving this scarf design. Get one for yourself and get one for a friend, half price. DM me to custom order it in your favorite color. So notice how this is just really conversational, right? It's not that different of how you would actually talk to a friend. And this is really how I try to, again, with that idea, you're always just trying to think about one person in your mind. The more you focus on writing it as if you're writing to one person, the less of a sleazy salesman you're going to feel like, and the less of a robot you're going to sound like. People want to feel like they're connecting with a real person. Next slide. So I'm happy to discuss anything that is coming up for people. If people have specific kind of questions about their feed, or even want me to take a look at it, I'm happy to give you some feedback.